The memorial garden wasn't on any map. No signs, no gate, just a gravel path behind the maintenance shed near the far perimeter of the SEAL compound. The kind of place instructors went when they didn't want to be seen. Morales found it by accident his second week in. He wasn't supposed to be there. But most mornings he woke too early. Couldn't sit still. Couldn't go back to sleep. And the garden, quiet, shadowed, bare but not empty, became the only place where the weight in his chest felt slightly less sharp. It was always empty. Until it wasn't. The man was already there when Morales arrived that Thursday. 0413. Sky still black. Compound dead quiet. He sat on the far bench. Head down. Jacket zipped high. Faded ball cap pulled low. Same posture as the statue on the far wall. One knee bent, arms resting on the thighs. Silent. Morales stopped just inside the gravel line. Didn't want to intrude. But the man didn't move. Didn't even turn his head. So Morales walked slowly to the near end of the bench and sat down. 10 feet between them. Plenty of space for silence. The garden was simple 3 benches. A low wall of slate stone with no names, just initials carved in single lines. H, R, J, T, W. Some deeper, some rough. Each one meant something to someone. Morales didn't know who carved them. Didn't know how long the wall had been there. But this morning, the man sat like he remembered everyone. His boots were torn at the toe. Jacket frayed at the cuffs. The patch on his left shoulder was blank, just a square of dark thread faded to nothing. He looked like someone who belonged and didn't. Morales didn't speak. He just sat with him until the sky started turning gray. Then, quietly, the man stood. He didn't glance at Morales, didn't nod, didn't even stretch. He just walked away down the gravel path, one slow step at a time. And for a reason Morales couldn't explain, his heart beat faster when he saw the man's wristwatch. Old, scratched glass, and stopped at exactly 0347. He wasn't there the next day, or the one after that. Morales came anyway. 0415 sharp. Sat on the same end of the bench, hands in his lap, not praying, not thinking, just trying to breathe without guilt catching in his throat. He stared at the initials on the stone wall, counted them sometimes. 22. One set had a small coin tucked beneath it. Another had a worn bootlace loop through the cracks. He never touched anything. But on the third morning, something was different. There was a new carving, low near the base, almost hidden under a layer of dust. Not like the others, shallow, uneven, like someone had done it fast, maybe with a pocket knife. JC. Morales stared at it for a long time. He knew the initials. Jordan Callan, the candidate who'd washed out the week before. The one who couldn't finish Surf Passage. The one who, as they both lay shivering in the sand, had whispered, "You let go of my hand." Morales hadn't told anyone about that. Hadn't said a word. Callan was still on base, probably. Or already gone. Morales didn't know. But someone had put his initials on this wall, and Morales was sure they hadn't been there yesterday. He stood slowly, looked around the garden. No tools, no scrapings, no fresh dust trail. But on the stone bench, where the man had sat, something had been pressed into the soft moss, just enough to leave an outline. A boot heel. And beside it, something even smaller. A faint shape worn into the wood from years of pressure. Morales leaned in. It was the size of a quarter. A faint circular ring where a wrist rested. Over and over again. Like someone had been coming here long before him. Every morning. Maybe for years. He was back on Monday. Same jacket. Same bench. Same silence. Morales didn't speak when he sat down. Didn't ask why he was gone. Didn't ask what JC meant, even though he was sure the old man knew. He just sat there, 5 feet away, watching the sky shift from black to gray. The man didn't look at him. Didn't move. Only his right hand twitched, every so often, like a reflex. On his wrist, the same old watch. Still stuck at 347. Morales cleared his throat once. "You come here a lot?" The man said nothing. "Just asking," Morales added, quieter now. The wind pushed through the gravel behind them. There was a small metal cross tucked behind one of the stones. Morales hadn't seen it before. He stared at it for a moment. "JC wasn't ready," he said aloud, unsure why. The man didn't nod, didn't correct him. But somehow, Morales felt like he'd been heard anyway. "You think he's gonna blame me?" Morales asked, half to himself. Nothing. But then, the man shifted his boot forward just slightly, and the gravel moved. exposing something small beneath the dust. A folded piece of paper, stained from rain and time. Morales reached down, picked it up. The front said nothing. But inside, in ink faded nearly to nothing, were 7 letters. You carried him. Morales stared at it. His throat tightened. By the time he looked up, the man was already walking away. That night, Morales lay awake in his bunk, staring at the underside of the rack above him. He didn't tell anyone about the note. Didn't tell them about the initials. Didn't mention the man with the stopped watch. At lights out, the room went quiet, and Morales kept replaying the number in his mind. 347. Not 0345. Not 0400. A very specific moment. It wasn't an accident. No seal wears a broken watch on purpose. The next morning, Morales showed up at the garden 2 minutes earlier than usual. The man was already there. Same seat. Same posture. Only this time, Morales noticed something else. His boots weren't regulation. They were older. Real leather. Torn along the inner seams like they'd been resoled more than once. Not for inspection, for movement. The kind you wear long after people stop looking at your feet. Morales didn't sit. He just stood near the edge of the bench and asked, "What happened at 347? The man didn't look up, didn't blink, but something changed in his breathing. Subtle. Like a pause. Then he shifted his wrist slightly, showing the face of the watch. Morales stepped closer. The crack in the glass wasn't from wear. It was from impact. One clean fracture across the center, like it had hit something hard. Maybe once. Maybe fast. And the hands were locked. 347. The second hand pointed down, like gravity had held it there all this time. Morales waited. The man didn't answer. But after a few minutes, he reached into his jacket and pulled something out. A small square of canvas. He didn't hand it over. Just set it on the bench and stood. When he walked away, Morales picked it up. It wasn't a patch. It was a torn name tape. SD2, OZ. SEAL Team 2. Operation 0. No record. No file. Just whispers. Morales had only heard it mentioned once. A mission deep inland, no air support, no outcome confirmed. Everyone assumed the team didn't make it back, but the man had. Or part of him had. And the rest? Still stuck at 347. By Thursday, Morales couldn't hold it in anymore. During chow, he approached Chief Barrett, one of the senior instructors. Grizzled, quiet, respected in that way that made other instructors pause when he entered the room. Morales waited until most of the others had cleared out, then asked carefully, "Chief, who's the old guy who comes to the memorial in the mornings?" Barrett didn't answer right away. He just looked up from his tray, fork midair, then slowly set it down. "You seen him?" "Yeah," Morales said. "Couple times." Barrett scratched the side of his neck, then leaned back in his chair, eyeing Morales like someone checking the weight of a sealed rock. "How many times?" "4. Maybe 5. Barrett nodded once, then looked away. "We don't stop him," he said quietly. "Why not?" "Because he's not here." Morales blinked. "But he is." "No," Barrett said, slower this time. "He was." "That's different." He reached into his breast pocket and pulled out a folded index card. No names. Just a list of dates. All of them crossed out. One of them had a red star next to it. "Operation 0, Morales whispered. Barrett didn't confirm. Didn't deny. "We had a man once," he said, "who got out when the others didn't. No official debrief. No record. Came back dirty, silent, broken boots and a stained sling. Wouldn't speak for a month. Was that him?" Barrett's eyes narrowed. Not in anger, just defense. "You asked too many questions, Morales." Morales stayed quiet. Barrett leaned forward, elbows on the table. "Listen to me," he said. "You ever meet someone who walks like the ground remembers them?" Morales nodded slowly. "Then you don't need me to tell you his name," Barrett said. And with that, he stood, dumped his tray, and left. He never brought it up again. But Morales noticed that the next morning, Barrett stood behind the stone wall at 0415, arms folded. Not watching Morales. Watching the man. It was a Friday. The kind where the fog rolled in low and slow, muffling everything, like the base itself was holding its breath. Morales woke at 0400 sharp. No alarm. His boots were on before he even realized he'd moved. By 0410, he was at the edge of the gravel path, walking the same steps he had every morning that week. His boots always lined up with the same cracks in the concrete. He didn't think about it anymore. It had become routine. He rounded the last corner. The bench was empty. The man wasn't there. Morales froze. The air felt thinner somehow, like whatever had been anchoring the place had lifted. He waited. 10 minutes. Then 20. Nothing. The gravel remained still. No footprints. No outline in the moss. No canvas left behind. Even the stone wall looked different, quieter. Morales walked slowly to the bench, sat down like always, and waited. He watched the sky shift from black to gray, then to the pale blue of early morning. Still nothing. Then, as he was about to stand, something caught his eye. Near the base of the wall, just beneath the initials JC, a new mark had been carved. Not letters this time. A time. 3:47. He crouched, ran his thumb across the numbers. The cuts were shallow, but fresh. Not weathered like the others, still sharp. His breath caught. And just beside it, half buried in the dust, was a worn challenge coin. Blank on one side. On the other, just a trident. No unit. No motto. Just the mark. He picked it up, brushing it clean. It felt cold, even in the morning heat. When Morales turned to leave, he felt something heavy in his chest. Not fear. Not even sadness. Something deeper. The kind of silence that doesn't arrive when someone disappears, but when you realize they've already given you everything they had. He never said a word about the coin. Not about the time etched into the stone. Not about the man who'd vanish like he was never there to begin with. But something shifted after that morning. The instructors noticed it first. Morales started showing up 5 minutes early to every drill. Not to be seen, just to be ready. He spoke less, smiled less, didn't waste motion anymore. Not out of fear, out of clarity. When he moved, it was quiet, precise, like the ground did, in fact, remember him. 1 week later, after a long stretch of cold surf drills, Morales returned to the barracks to find something sitting in his locker. Wrapped in a folded strip of old canvas. No tag. No note. Just wait. He opened it carefully. Inside was the wristwatch. Same cracked glass. Same time, locked at 3:47. Morales ran his thumb along the face, watched the frozen second hand like it might suddenly move. It didn't. But on the underside of the band, scratched faintly into the leather, were 4 letters. REMA. He didn't know the acronym, but he understood the meaning. Maybe a team. Maybe a phrase. Maybe nothing. But somehow, he knew what it meant. Remember me as able. Not broken. Not gone. Not lost to sand or smoke. Able. Capable. Present. Silent. And suddenly, Morales understood why the man had worn the watch. Not as a reminder of what time had taken, but what it had left behind. A single moment frozen forever, so someone else could carry it forward. He closed the watch. Held it tight in his hand. And when he stood the next morning at 0415 in the garden, he didn't look for the man. He looked at the bench. Then he sat where the man used to sit. Same spot. Same posture. And waited. The season changed before anyone noticed. Training ran long. Recruits rotated in. Names came and went. And the garden behind the compound stayed mostly forgotten, unless you knew where to look. Morales came every morning. He didn't speak. Didn't bring a journal. Didn't check the time. He didn't have to. The watch stayed in his jacket pocket now. He never wore it. But when the wind picked up, he could feel it shift just enough to remind him it was still there. A weight that didn't drag, just steadied. One morning, a younger candidate wandered in behind him. Probably lost. Probably curious. Morales didn't wave him off. He just nodded once. The kid stood for a while, quiet, scanning the wall. Then, noticing the carvings, he asked, "Are these the guys who didn't make it?" Morales looked at the stones, then back at the kid. "No," he said. "These are the ones someone remembered." The kid didn't understand. Not yet, but he would. Later that week, Morales returned to the garden alone. The wind had shifted from west to north, cooler now, tighter. He knelt by the wall, near the base. The coin was still there, right under 347. He reached into his jacket, pulled out a dull pocket knife, the kind passed down, not issued, and carved 2 letters into the bottom corner. GB. Not for glory, not for recognition, just so someone else would know, when they showed up years from now, that a man named Gibbs had sat here, every morning, long before the sun. That he carried something no one could name, and that he handed it off without saying a word. Morales stood, brushed the stone dust from his hands, and as he walked back toward the compound, The wind pushed the gravel behind him into soft new patterns, as if the ground itself had shifted to make room for the memory. Some men never get their names etched in marble, but if you're lucky, you find the ones who carve it into you instead.